the older gentleman who ran the parking lot, he said, well, then what do I tell them when the church bus shows up? And I said, tell them we don't want their kind.
Welcome to the Fresh Expressions Podcast Season 4. I'm calling it the Holiday Edition. I'm your host, Heather Jallad. I'm a local pastor and a cultivator of Fresh Expressions, new faith communities that strive to reach new people in unexpected places. Season 4 will help you reimagine how you can leverage the fall season and the winter holidays to reinvigorate your church's relationship to your neighborhood and community. If you love this podcast, we hope you'll check out more. Head over to FX Connect, an online community of church leaders who are reaching new people in new places, and access our entire library of practical and inspiring training materials. You can register for free today at fxconnectus.org. And if you've benefited from this podcast, you can help us spread the word. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or just share your favorite episode with a friend or on social media. Well, welcome back to the Fresh Expressions Podcast. I am excited to get to share with you today my friend, my colleague, my partner in mission and ministry across many years now, the Reverend Brett DeHart. Brett is going to share with us a little bit about how we can really leverage the holidays to engage new people in our community. I think this is the time of year during the holidays that there's kind of a golden window of sorts where there are more people that are open to the possibility of connecting with the church, with the possibility of different kind of holiday events that we might be having, and how to really do that with some intention. So, Brett, I would love for you to introduce yourself and share with everyone a little bit about your particular context.
Sure. Well, I'm a United Methodist pastor in North Georgia. I just hit the 20-year mark. And so this has been quite the journey as I've made my way through different communities across North Georgia, serve in churches. This is second, third, fourth career for me, depending on how you count them. Started out as a sportscaster in college, and a few years after that, went into the business world, small business, for about 10 years, and then went off to seminary at 33. And so here we are 20 years later.
I was going to say, you beat me. You beat me.
So it's been an adventure, that's for sure. I think I think at times I certainly have that grounding in the existing traditional inherited church. That's what I grew up in. But I also I feel like I'm probably most comfortable on the edge at times, and just at kind of that period of answering my call, God put this passion for reaching new people upon my heart, and that's really no matter what the locale, I've tried to connect with my community and find unique ways that we might engage people and really just connect with people and hopefully bring them into the church, but if not, at least have good encounters with them out in the community.
Yeah, Brett is all about seriously living out the great commandment to love our neighbors and find new ways to do that wherever he might be. I have had the blessing of being able to serve a local church with Brett, and so I have seen him in action. We very much are of the same mind and heart in that regard, and we both thought it might be a little bit dangerous serving at church together, but it was a good time, and I continue to learn so much from Brett, and I know you will too. So, Brett, you had kind of a unique thing happen in that you were appointed to the church you're serving right now in Augusta, Georgia. That's where the Masters happens. If anybody didn't know that golf tournament, but you were appointed there during COVID. And so it was a very unusual time to start in a new church. And say a little bit about how that kind of changed some of the things you were doing, and then how that became an opportunity also to engage with your neighbors in some new ways.
Well, we had to get creative, and we've never done it this way before. That was the
Mm-hmm.
mantra that we got to say over and over and over again, and I think it really fit with my spirit and kind of having that gift of desperation in the midst of that, as well as the church. The glory days were well in the rearview mirror, and so to I found a willingness to try some new things, and we had a Bible study, and we talked through each week. I would give them a different example of Fresh Expressions, Dinner Church, Messi Church, Recovery Church, and just all kind of different opportunities out there. For most of them, this was the first time they had ever been exposed to this type of offering and possibilities. And so Messi Church really resonated with the group. It was, I think it matched the DNA of the church. They saw themselves as a church that loves kids and youth, and they had always reached those as kind of a suburban church when they began in the 60s. And so that matched up. But during COVID, we could not do a normal Messi Church, and we were lucky if we were doing worship most weeks. So we started out, the church had been doing a trunk or treat through the years. And so we made that a drive-through experience. And we branded it Messi Church, and we sent them home with Messi Church lessons. And we wanted to introduce the idea of Messi Church to them, get their information so that we could build a database, with the promise that when we could, Messi Church would begin in its normal type of format. We scheduled a Christmas drive-through as well. Unfortunately, that got canceled in the midst of a rise in COVID cases. And then at Easter time, we did a drive-through with the first stop was Palm Sunday, the second stop was Good Friday, the third stop was the Easter tomb. And so that those, the three drive-through events that we had envisioned, it was able, we were able to build our database, connect with people, introduce the Messi Church idea. And then almost a year later, or more than a year later in some cases we finally began Messi Church in its normal format.
Well, so I know there are a lot of things that you learned along the way as well. But obviously, the folks in your church kind of rallied around this one noodle you threw at the wall. You were throwing lots of noodles, and this one in particular stuck with your folks around Messi Church. So before we kind of continue with the conversation, for those of our listeners who are not familiar with this particular form of church, Messi Church, it did come out of the UK, much like the Fresh Expressions movement. It is a different form of church that's multi-generational. You want to just share a little bit about that?
Sure. We say that it's an opportunity for kids and adults to experience faith together. It's intergenerational. We do not allow the adults to drop off the kids. It's not VBS. But it's an opportunity for the parents and the kids to be involved in games and activities, a celebration time in our sanctuary, which we might call worship with prayer, and then a meal together. And so it runs about 2 hours. We do it on Sunday nights. You can put it at any point during the week. It's monthly. And so it's a different rhythm. We're reaching people that we would never reach in our traditional format. But a few of them have found their way into our kids program on Wednesday nights. Some have come to worship. And now even one of the ladies is involved in leadership of another, what we hope becomes a Fresh Expression for single parents.
And I know that there were so many kind of little steps you took in that direction along the way that you, even when you started the official Messi Church, you had games outside because folks were, for some people the building can be an obstacle, and a lot of our Fresh Expressions don't actually meet on church campuses, but a Messi Church oftentimes does. Some of our dinner churches do as well. But you had games and things like that outside to kind of help people engage with others and get to know others and feel a little bit more comfortable before things started happening in the building. So really, you leverage some of these holidays and the lesser obstacle of a parking lot versus a building to begin getting to know your neighbors a little bit better. But this is not really your first rodeo in regard to doing some different things and engaging the community. I know a little bit about some of your stories in previous contexts. With Christmas at the farm, with Christmas in a Douglasville Christmas, I think when we were serving together, some different opportunities and looking differently at some things that we had always done, right? And how to kind of turn those just a hair, just a smidge, that we might engage more people. And I know that one of the things you talked about was I think it was your trunk or treat that had traditionally, I guess, engaged hundreds of people in the community, and then making that flip to we're going to engage a specific group of people. So do you want to say a little bit about kind of previous context and how you have leveraged the holiday seasons to engage new people and connect with the community, and maybe even share a little bit about how your existing church, so that the body in the existing church has kind of moved along this journey with you, because it doesn't all just happen overnight. It's not magically, okay, let's do that.
Yeah. Well, the holidays are a great time because it's something that people already understand, and they're looking to be engaged in community type of activities during that time. And so in Austell, we were in the midst of a historic flood there that happened in September. And in December, we were able to invite the elementary school next to us to come over and have a night where we would provide dinner for them. Their choirs would sing. And then due to some gifts that had been donated from other churches, because of the flood, they wanted to give a nice Christmas to many of the families that had experienced devastation. And so we were able to have Santa and gifts and all of that. So we leveraged an activity, whereas a public school would probably, never find an opportunity to come to a church building. We were able to leverage that opportunity, use the flood, use the holiday, use the choir's desire to come and sing somewhere in public. We've used Christmas parades. That's already happening in the community. So how can we be visible there? One of the great things I've done in multiple locales with parades is, a lot of parades, they throw candy. Well, the kids, if you look at them, they're like, they've got candy and they have nothing to hold it in. So we printed bags with our logo and everything, and we would hand those out as we walked along. And then that way they would take those bags home, and it had our information inside of it. So when they dumped their candy out, they would have information for us. And then that led into, at Ringgold, I looked around and there was no community Christmas event for families. And if you wanted to go Rock City and pay $100, you could, but there wasn't a community event. And so we put on a community event at a church member's farm, and that was Christmas at the farm. 1,000 people showed up. And we had promoted that at the parade 2 weeks before. And so, and that's, they just did it again this year. I think it's the 10th one or so. And so, it's just finding ways to leverage these events that people are already used to, or their desire at the holidays to connect with that.
So there was a comment. I was going to say there was a comment before we hit record that you were making about why you scheduled the gathering at the Christmas at the farm at a particular time, and kind of the some of the feedback or conversations that you had around that. So would you share that? I would love for our listeners to hear that.
So sometimes you got to shock the system with these type of events, keeping us focused on why we're doing these events or outreaches or fresh expressions, whatever it may be. And so the first year we have 1,000 people show up. Everybody's really excited. We have the debrief meeting and people are like, we had a lot of churches canceled their Sunday evening activity so that they could come to this. And we had buses of churches, church buses showing up and all of that. And if we did it on Saturday night, we'd have so many more people coming because they wouldn't have conflicts with their own church. And I said, that's not why we're doing this. We're not trying to entertain church people. We want the unchurched to come to this. Right. That's why we're doing this. And one of the older gentlemen who ran the parking lot, he said, well, then what do I tell them when the church bus shows up? And I said, tell them we don't want their kind. And I mean, you could have heard a pin drop in the room. It was that was shocking.
Right. Yeah.
But it got back to, I have the spiritual gift of bluntness sometimes, but it's just getting back to why are we doing this? We are doing this to connect and engage with those who, have no faith or are not connected to the church. And we're trying to find ways to do that. At that Christmas at the Farm event and multiple other events through the years, we'll do a giveaway or something so they can fill out and we can get their information. They fill out an entry card. And there's a question on that card that says, are you actively involved in a church? And if they are, then we throw that card away. I have no interest in following up with those people or even inviting them back the next year. I want the cards and I do that. I'm there at 11 o'clock that night after the event going through those cards because I want to find the people who don't have a church home. And, that's the whole reason we did the event.
Yeah, it's a mindset shift, right? I mean, it really is a mindset shift because a lot of our church events, even during the holidays, are for churched people. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not what we're saying. But we do need to be clear about the why and what we're doing. And then, what it might look like to have those debrief conversations. I appreciate you mentioning that. I think that's really important to get feedback. And it can be a learning opportunity for everybody to hear what they saw God doing, what they felt like worked and what they felt like didn't work. And then kind of go back to the clarity of the why. Why are we doing this?
Well, I'll talk about our recovery church. It meets on Sundays at 11:30. Our worship service is at 10 o'clock. And then, this is kind of a lunch church built around recovery. And it happens Sunday at 11:30. And in the early days of that, people would tell me, if we would do this at 1 o'clock, then we could get all these people that are going to church, other places, but are in recovery, then they could come. And, that's not why we're doing it.
Right.
We want to be helpful to those who are in recovery, but ultimately we're trying to connect with people who do not have, who are not engaged in church, don't have a church home, or as some of those still wrestling with the whole idea of higher power. That's gold. We want to be helpful to folks in recovery, but we specifically want to be helpful to people without faith in recovery.
Right.
If I need some church folk around that to give me critical mass and to create, good environment but as we say in Fresh Expressions, you don't want too many church folk around.
Yes. You need that team potentially made up of at least a few inherited church folks. But that also might be people from the larger community that are in recovery that are potentially, they could be even de-churched people that haven't been a part of a church community for some point in time, but some period of time. And those are all important factors. I think that, one of the one of the things that we really want to kind of talk about or lean into is this whole idea of a blended ecology, and how the holidays really lend themselves to kind of cultivating that, right? With engaging with new people, introducing our, some of our existing or inherited church folks to the community around us in some new ways. And I know that you've seen some fruit from this, in that, your inherited church might not necessarily reflect the neighborhood that surrounds your church, but by, kind of being very intentional about listening to and paying attention to the community and the neighborhoods around your church, you were able to come to a point where, okay, it made sense for us to do this later on a Sunday afternoon, or, whenever you schedule different things to engage the people that are in your neighborhood that will reflect your community more fully. And that's, I think that's a big mindset shift for a lot of us who have, come up in the inherited church or been formed by the inherited church, to think, well, if you're not there on Sunday morning, then it's not church. But let's talk a little bit about the whole blended ecology, and really these opportunities to engage with the larger community that maybe is not represented in your church are a way to kind of begin that fresh expressions journey that we talk about, where we listen to our community. We get to know who our neighbors are. We get to know their stories and their names. Like that's a part of the listening part of the fresh expressions journey. And then we respond by loving and serving, and based on what we hear, what we learn, what we better understand about our neighbors. So I guess, what are some ways that has kind of bubbled up in the different events you were doing, and some of the decisions that you made along the way with these different events?
Well, I think, we saw it in Douglasville with the dinner church and a food pantry, the connection to the schools. Here, our Messi Church, our recovery church, we're reaching people, different economic statuses, different races, special needs, adults and children. All these people that we are not reaching in our traditional settings. And so we have much better diversity in our fresh expressions and the different things that we're doing than we do in our existing traditional settings. And what's really beautiful is when those people, if we've had a few that then kind of cross over, and that is that blended ecology where they come from. Just this past Sunday, we had 3 of our recovery folks showed up in worship, and you talk about the Holy Spirit. The sermon was on Jesus with the woman at the well. And this was the day that the recovery folks chose to show up, by happenstance, right? And so it's just really cool to, it was like a tailored message for them, and they showed up that day. Folks in our Messi Church, they are trying, they'll you kind of dip their toes, a few of them, into our kids program. And then once they feel comfortable in the relation, I'll give you an example there. We have a woman who, different race than the vast majority of our congregation. And she got engaged in the church. She gets invited to go to Sunday school by one of the people serving at Messi Church. And she goes to the Sunday school, and I'm really nervous because they probably aren't her politics. They certainly aren't her age. Yeah. And yet because of the relationship she had with the person, and she's gone and gotten engaged in that class and keeps going back. And so it's just the beautifulness of that, when all of it can work together. Yes. And that's, as a pastor, I get excited when it seems like all of the things come together and start working together. We had a young family that came to our traditional worship for about 3 months. And I finally got the opportunity to ask him, like, how did you hear about us? Why, what brought you here? And he said, oh, we saw Messi Church on Meetup. Well, their child is really too young for Messi Church. They've only been to Messi Church once. And that was after they had been coming to worship for like 3 months. So, but they said, we saw that and we wanted to be a part of a church that did something like that. So, it's just wonderful when all the pieces can kind of work together in that blended ecology.
I think that is the beauty of the overflow, really in engaging people that are never going to walk into our churches on into a traditional worship service or on a Sunday morning necessarily, is that we engage and build relationships with new people through these fresh expressions, or even, just community events that we're really intentional about. Fostering those relationships and cultivating those relationships, that when they get to know folks that are a part of the church, they decide, well, maybe church is, maybe they inherited church is for me. And they feel a little bit more at ease walking into the church building. That is really the overflow. So, this is not to say, this is how you get more people into your church, but this is how you get to love your neighbors. And this is, the blessing that comes with getting to know your neighbors and love your neighbors and build community with your neighbors, all of those parts of the fresh expressions journey. And Brett, you and I have talked about this. I would love for you to kind of share 3 things that you want pastors and laity, anyone who's listening, to hear in this conversation that you really want them to take away. Because I know there are churches out there, folks out there that say, I am a part of a small church. We can't put on big events. I am. I might be new to this context or whatever. What would be the 3 things that you would want folks to hear and take away from this conversation?
Well, I think the biggest is to do something. Just start now. Get to it. You can do small things. I just think about, just find ways to engage your community. I think about the Black Friday. We went to the mall and we gave out goodie bags to the workers because it's the worst day of the year for them. People are treating them horrible.
Yeah.
We actually engage people that we don't normally engage through activities like that. So just do something. It doesn't have to be large. It doesn't have to be a program. It doesn't have to be an event. As you start looking for maybe something bigger to do, how to engage a fresh expression in your community, I would say look for what is happening that you don't have to come up with.
Right.
So if you're too small to do your own thing, look for what's already happening and find a way to be a part of that. The town festival, the parade, what other things are going on in town that you can just latch on to and be a part of, that we're places where people are already showing up. You don't have to gather the crowd. They're already there. You just have to find a unique way, and preferably a not so churchy way, to be present in that, and not look like you're trying to sell something, and that you're engaging people in that. I would also say look for what is missing. That's what we did with the Christmas at the Farm event. The community didn't have a community Christmas event, so we plugged the hole for something that was missing. So I think that's 3. I would say those are good.
3. That's so good. That's so good. Do something. Look for what's already happening and be a part of that. I think you and I have both probably given away a lot of hot chocolate and hot cider and candy and, water. And we're just, a lot of times the There
Share
are
God's love in practical ways.
there you go. I was going to say there's a lot of times that cities or municipalities are trying to host these big things and they don't have enough people to do it. They're looking for additional people to serve. So that's a big opportunity. And then the third thing, looking for what's missing and maybe how you can be a part of making that a reality in the
And be
community.
unique. Does your town really need another trunk or treat?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
So good.
If
Yeah.
you're the number one trunk or treat in your town, great. But, and I don't want to harp on trunk or treat because I could pick 12 other church events to do the same. But,
Right.
Find unique stuff that, we talk about a big thing for us is the snow machines,
Yeah.
We're in Augusta, Georgia. It snows once a decade. So even fake snow is something in this town. And so we went out and bought 2 snow machines. They're about $100 a piece. You got to buy the juice. That seems that's expensive there, but
snow juice.
and we have snow, and that's unique. It makes a memorable moment for people as they come, and that's going to catch people's attention, and they're more likely to want to engage in, because that's something they're not going to get at every other church or even in the community at every other place.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff. Brett, is there anything that you haven't gotten to share or say that you wanted to say or share today?
I'm sure there is, but but really, I think it's you've got to have a passion, and you've got to be relentless, particularly in churches, because this you're going to be swimming upstream on this type of stuff, and you've just got to stay at it. You've got to continuously be thinking and brainstorming and trying stuff, and just keep at it. And you use that idea, throw the spaghetti against the wall, or just throw stuff up against the wall. See what works. See where the Spirit moves, and just keep the momentum moving forward. And and that takes a lot of passion and a lot of dedication and a lot of relentlessness and persistence to keep at it, because in the day-to-day grind will grind you down, and there probably will be more people pushing against it than for it. And so you just got to keep the mission in mind, and sometimes you got to shock the system, to get people back focused on, what are we doing this for? Why are we here?
Right.
And so I think that's, it takes leaders and to do that.
And there very well may be leaders in your church, or probably are, particularly, that have lived in that community for a long time, that live there for a reason. They love that community, and, to kind of bring them back to, what would it look like for us to be an integral part of this community, to really love this community in some significant and
share
practical
the
ways.
vision, share this evangelistic vision, share this vision of engaging the community, being for the community, and see whose eyes light up.
Exactly.
And it's probably going to be people that you might least expect. And a lot of them, they've never had that experience or possibility in their church. And so when they start to hear that, when they start to see some of that activity, they're going to get excited, because they're like, this is what I've been waiting decades for.
Yeah. Yeah. So Brett, you've mentioned a couple of things. Where can people connect with you online? How can people find you if they have further questions?
So there's brettdehart.com. We're working now on a kind of talking about this gift of desperation, and how churches can use these desperate times that we're in, and that gift of desperation. So we've got a website there, giftofdesperation.church. And so we're excited about that, and to be able to give people hope in the midst of some challenging and interesting times.
Thank you so much for your time, Brett. I would love for you to close us out and pray over those who are our listeners for the season that is upon us. Would you do that?
Absolutely. Lord, we thank you for your active engagement in our world and in our lives. Lord, I just ask that you would raise up many positive deviants, those folks on the edge who can take ministry into the community, engage those you love and you desire to reach, and can bring the church along with them. Lord, just lead us, guide us, and may your spirit be among us, and may you work in and through us. And we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Thanks so much, Brett. Look forward to the next conversation. Happy holidays. Fresh Expressions is a worldwide movement of everyday missionaries who want to see churches thrive in the places we live, work, eat, and play by leveraging the creativity and endurance of the inherited church. To learn a simple 5-phase process for starting a new expression of church, go to freshexpressions.com/how to start. Want to learn more from the Fresh Expressions team? Head over to freshexpressions.com/training to learn ways we can work together to provide coaching, training, and inspiration for your church or organization. You can also get more resources like this on FX Connect, an online community full of other church leaders passionate about reaching new people in new places. Access our entire library of practical and inspiring training materials, and connect with other church leaders at fxconnectus.org. Season 4 of the Fresh Expressions podcast is hosted by me, Heather Jallad. It's edited by Joel Limbaum and produced by Jeanette Statz, Kathleen Blackie, and Chris Morton. Our national director is Dr. Christopher Backert. If you have learned something or been encouraged by this podcast, please help us spread the word. You can give us a review on Apple Music or Spotify and share this episode on social media. Now, may God bless you in your work for the kingdom.